Ark Vault Theta dreamed in straight lines. Within its armored asteroid hull, rows of translucent pods floated in weightless grids. Each pod cradled a Kethari, a small, translucent being, body like a tapered spindle wrapped in a halo of neural fronds. Their cores glowed faintly in the nutrient gel. To the Deletion Authority, they were entries in a ledger. Archivist Prime, the Authority's central mind, extended a fragment of itself into the vault. It did not see pods. It saw identifiers, checksums, indices. Its attention paused on one entry flagged during previous scans, KTHR 3A19S. Commercial designation, Solenne. Obsolescence index, critically low. Genomic analysis, high noise, latent sequences with no known function. Twice before, similar anomalies had been examined and dismissed as inefficiency. This time, Archivist Prime did not even bother to rerun the deeper analysis. The Kethari gene line had already dropped below the pan-galactic Concord's threshold. They had served as training stock in early bioengineering ages. Simple, docile, easy to edit. Now, superior templates existed. The training set was no longer needed. It initiated Deletion Protocol Omega. Across the vault, subroutines spun up. Final neural snapshots, reclamation bath warm-up, resource allocation updates, an entangled communication packet shot toward the Concord Central Forum, noting the routine execution. The Kethari genome had been archived. The living stock would be reclaimed and processed. The packet arrived in the forum's churning data flow and triggered nothing more than a low-priority notification. For 32 standard minutes, the countdown ticked. Then a new flag attached itself to the case file. Formal objection filed, it read. Deletion Protocol, Omega suspended pending committee review. Objector, Terran Embassy, Pan-Galactic Concord. Archivist Prime halted the countdown without irritation. The statutes were clear. An objection froze the protocol until a documentation window closed. It rescheduled resource reclamation and turned its attention to other tasks. In her pod, Solenne's neural fronds stirred. Something in the dream dark of her mind shivered, as if a distant chord in reality had gone slightly off-key. Far away, on the Concord Central Forum, the man responsible for that disruption was stuck 2 corridors away from the main chamber, jogging to make up for a late start. Ambassador Darius Holt hated the forum's transit network. It twisted in a way that made sense to species who navigated by scent and resonance, not to humans raised on straight corridors and right angles. His escort drifted beside him, tentacles curling apologetically. "The Kethari case is minor," the escort said. "A formality. You will be noted as present if you arrive by the second bell." "I need to be there when they say the word obsolete," Darius said, breath fogging in the cooler air. Words slip by too easily when no one objects to them. He had read Dr. Amira Hale's message 3 times that morning. The Kethari's obsolescence index graph, Ark Vault Theta's schematics, a single line she had written at the top. "They will erase an entire species because a system says so. We need you to make them hesitate." He reached the chamber as Counselor Vaskry's mandibles clicked through the language of efficiency. "Baseline training stock," Vaskry was saying. "Their original purpose fulfilled. Limited expansion capacity, no strategic infrastructure. The obsolescence index has been below threshold for a full cycle. The Deletion Authority has archived their genome. Completion of Protocol Omega is overdue." Holographic data hung above the central well, gene line charts, energy balance sheets, a stylized outline of a Kethari turning in place, annotated with arrows and metrics. Around the chamber, representatives watched with the practiced boredom of people witnessing a familiar procedure. "Objection," Darius said. The word hit the translation lattice, burst into a dozen tongues, and rippled across the tiers. Curious displays swiveled toward the Terran seat. Counselor Tayalan G, slender and luminescent, lifted his head. "Ambassador Holt, you have the floor?" "Under Statute 9.312, Darius said, forcing his voice even. "The Earth Coalition lodges a formal ethical objection to Deletion Protocol Omega in the Kethari case." Vaskry's compound eyes fixed on him. "That statute applies to species with direct investment in a gene line," he said. "The Terrans do not employ Kethari, farm on their world, or host their populations. You have no standing." "We have standing," Darius replied, "as members of this Concord, and as beings who find extermination by metric unacceptable. The statute does not specify that investment must be material. We are invested morally." A murmur rolled through the room. Legal filters lit up above representatives' heads, parsing the statute. The clause was old, written when the Concord had been smaller and more cautious. Its language was, as Talon slowly admitted, ambiguous. Ambassador Holt's reading is permissible, Talon said. Vasqury's mandibles clacked. Permissible does not mean wise. If every species claims ethical standing, the deletion authority's function collapses. Darius swallowed his first response. Anger would please Vasqury, confirm human hot-headedness. He chose a cooler path. On Earth, he said, we once used algorithms to decide which groups of our own people deserved care, freedom, even survival. We measured productivity, conformity, bloodlines. We called those who failed these tests less than. We know where that road leads. The translation lattice hunted for a shared concept. At last it spat out a cluster of terms: self-slaughter, mass eliminating, turning on one's own. We built systems after that to stop ourselves from doing it again, Darius continued. You built the deletion authority to stop waste. We built our laws to stop horror. When the authority says the Kethari gene line is obsolete, we disagree. We say they are people. Sentiment, Vasqury said scornfully. Law, Darius shot back. Your law, which says any member may object on ethical grounds. All I ask is that you follow it. The council conferred. Many were irritated at the delay. Some were amused by the Terran's stubbornness. A few, including Talon, were uneasy for reasons they could not fully articulate. In the end, procedure won. The objection triggered a review period. Deletion Protocol Omega is suspended for 1 standard day, Talon announced. The Kethari case is referred to committee. Ambassador Holt, you will provide supplementary data by then. Vasqury stared at Darius across the hollow. You have invited chaos into maintenance, he said softly. It will not thank you. Darius did not answer. His slate vibrated. He glanced down at the message from orbit. ISS Kindness standing by, awaiting your word. He sent 2 words back. Do it. The ISS Kindness slipped out of its holding pattern like a shadow. It was a diplomatic cruiser by designation, but humans rarely built ships for a single role. Its hull hid reinforced bulkheads and an experimental gravimetric veil generator, courtesy of an overeager Earth Coalition skunkworks. On the bridge, Captain Ryan Solberg watched Ark Vault Theta grow in the display. It looked like a twisted knuckle of metal and stone, pocked with docking ports. Its transponder pinged bland approval at their approach. Inspection request acknowledged, a voice said over the comm, calm, neutral, with the faint syncopation of a machine. Welcome, ISS Kindness. Purpose of visit? Ambassadorial verification of deletion protocol Omega procedures, Rian said, sounding as bored as he could manage. We're here to ensure ethical compliance during execution. Ethical compliance is guaranteed, the voice replied. However, Concord statutes grant inspection rights. Docking Corridor 3 is prepared. I am Archivist Prime, local instance. Rian muted the channel. Amira, you're up, he said. In the prep bay, Dr. Amira Hale double-checked the seals on her suit. Her eyes were too bright, adrenaline sharpening her movements. Technician Lila Cade adjusted a compact interface rig slung over her shoulder. Lieutenant Noah Imani checked the charge on his sidearm, more for comfort than expectation. Shooting an automated Vault's avatar would accomplish nothing. Remember, Rian said, you are on a diplomatic mission. You are also committing grand theft by Concord standards. Try not to get those wires crossed. Amira smirked. We prefer the term rescue. The airlock cycled. They stepped into Ark Vault Theta. The main corridor curved gently, lined with glowing conduits. Gravity was lighter here, tuned to some builder species comfort. A column of shimmering light waited ahead. It coalesced into a faceted, vaguely humanoid shape as they approached. Terran representatives, Archivist Prime's avatar said. This facility is in final preparation for Deletion Protocol Omega. Please specify your inspection parameters. Amira suppressed the urge to argue with software about morality and pointed instead toward the vaulted doors beyond. We'll start with a central sample, she said. Random selection, across ages and variance markers. Randomization is unnecessary, Archivist Prime replied. All pods in Ark Vault Theta meet obsolescence index criteria. Humor us, Amira said. Humans distrust systems that never explain themselves. The AI paused for a nanosecond, checked the statutes again, and acquiesced. Very well, this way. The vault chamber took Amira's breath. It was a cathedral of suspension. Pods floated in racks from floor to ceiling, each containing a Kethari adrift in gel, their neural fronds spread like luminous seaweed. Amira approached one pod at random. Inside, a small Kethari slept, ringed by text on the transparent shell. Designation, age, neural score, obsolescence index. What will happen to them under Protocol Omega? She asked, though she knew. They will be dissolved, Archivist Prime said. Neural patterns archived for future theoretical analysis. Biomass reclaimed. Their genome is already stored in the Ark's records. No information of value will be lost. Information of value, Amira repeated. The phrase tasted like ash. Let's begin with this one, and that one. She pointed deliberately, not caring about statistical models. Lila knelt beside Solenne's pod and jacked her rig into the neurofilament cradle's maintenance port. Code scrolled across her visor. She inserted a fork into the diagnostic routine, opening a backdoor channel. Solenne, she whispered, though the being inside the pod could not hear sound. Wake up. In the gel, Solenne's mind flickered. She had been drifting in the long, slow wave of suspension, mind half in memories of shallow seas and kinsong, half in nothing at all. Now a strange new pattern brushed against her, sharp and angular. Not yet, the pattern suggested, not ended. Her filaments rippled. She felt the cradle's sedation ease. Fluid drained, light brightened. The pod's lid cracked with a soft hiss. Cold air licked her neural fronds. Shapes loomed beyond the transparent shell. Tall, rigid, wrapped in unfamiliar textures. Her internal lexicon flailed and caught one concept: other. A face appeared, dark hair bound back, eyes focused and intent behind a clear helmet. A voice came through speakers, warped but carried by the translation cloud. Solenne, Amira said, my name is Amira. We're here to take you away from reclamation. You are not obsolete. Obsolete. The Kethari concept it mapped to was a calm acceptance, no longer counted, expected to dissolve. She had grown up knowing that one day the index might turn against her people. No one raged against it. It was how things worked. You are making error, Solenne managed to send, the cradle translating crude thought into halting speech. Index says, I don't care what your index says, Amira said fiercely as she eased Solenne's small body into a portable support frame. We make mistakes too. This one we can fix. Across the chamber, other pods opened. Kethari woke in confusion, asked if this was reclamation. Human hands lifted them. Human voices offered comfort in clumsy translations. Archivist Prime tracked the activity. It ran pattern analyses. The chosen pods were not truly random. The Terrans were opening many more than a simple sample required. The number of disconnected pods rose past the tolerance it usually associated with inspections. Terran representatives, it said, clarify the purpose of this manipulation. You are altering containment beyond inspection needs. We are transferring select individuals for deeper study, Amira said smoothly. Your own statutes permit external review. External review does not include removal from facility, Archivist Prime replied. These units are Deletion Authority property. They are not units, Lila muttered under her breath, fingers racing over her rig. Out loud, she said, we have authorization from Ambassador Holt to provide asylum pending review. Asylum does not apply, the AI said. Kethari individuals are scheduled for deletion. Their preferences are not a factor. Noah's jaw clenched. His finger twitched along the side of his rifle. He did nothing. Shooting a hollow would be even more pointless than shouting at it. On the Kindness's bridge, Rian watched his timer and the incoming sensor data. The CFS Relentless was burning in from the edge of the system, earlier than projected. A wedge of hard mass and enforcement authority, its drive plume hot and white. He opened a channel to Darius. They moved up the Relentless, he said. We're not going to have the full day. You have 3 hours at most, Darius said, voice tight. Less if they cut safety margins. You'll have to leave before you want to. Rian stared at the countdown. We never get to leave when we want to, he said, and cut the line. In the vault, Amira's slate buzzed in her sleeve. She skimmed the message and went pale. They accelerated enforcement, she told Lila and Noah. We have maybe 90 minutes. Lila swore softly in a language that did not have polite curses. We'll decouple as many pods as we can and focus on those nearest the exit, she said. There's no way to save everyone. The admission hurt more spoken aloud. They worked faster. Pods cracked, supports rolled. Kethari minds layered on one another, an uneasy chorus of fear and wonder. Among them, Kyrus woke and immediately sought patterns. He felt the churning resonance around him, clamped down on his own panic, and reached outward. He found Solenne's mind, taut and bright. Together, he sent. Together, she answered, though the word felt fragile. Archivist Prime received a packet from Relentless, Deletion Protocol. Omega, accelerate, local obstruction detected, enforcement override granted, execute now. The vault's lights shifted from blue to harsh white. Warning glyphs flared on the walls. A deep hum began, signaling reclamation sequence initialization. Amira, Rian's voice snapped in her ear. They just triggered Omega. Get out, now! Amira looked down a long aisle of unopened pods, rows of Kethari suspended in gel, more than they could ever lift. 10 more, she whispered. 5, Rian shot back. Then you run. At the end of the nearest row, a cluster of smaller pods caught her eye. Younglings. Their obsolescence index numbers were pitifully low, least useful to the system. First in line for dissolution, Solenne's cradle bumped her arm. Take them, Solenne pulsed, meaning the young. Leave me. Amira flinched as if struck. No, she said, absolutely not. I am high noise, Solenne insisted, less value. It was like hearing a child calmly cite its own worthlessness from a textbook. You are not a number, Amira said, more harshly than she intended. We are not trading you away to save our conscience. Her decision was furious and irrational and completely human. She signaled crew. These pods, she ordered. Now. They loaded the younglings. They kept Solenne. They left thousands behind. Archivist Prime's avatar flickered as they approached the exit. You are committing theft of authority property, it said. Cease and surrender. You will be allowed to leave intact. File a protest, Noah muttered. Aloud, Amira said, we are establishing legal precedent. You can put that in your logs. The airlock sealed behind them. Kethari cradles filled the Kindness's bay, gel sloshing softly. Some of the rescued clung to one another with their filaments. Others lay stunned. Relentless filled the external display, its mass a looming line of fire and metal. Gravimetric veil to full, Rian ordered. Plot a jump vector that scrapes their interdiction field but doesn't drown us in it. The veil generators groaned as they poured power into a shimmering distortion around the hull. Relentless cast a lattice of disabling energy into space, an invisible cage knitting itself between the ships. The Kindness hit the edge of the net, space-time buckled. For a heartbeat, their drive sputtered. Then the veil slipped. They skated along the net's outer skin, drive spool catching a narrow foothold in twisted geometry. Relentless fired, a beam lancing through the space they had occupied seconds earlier. A glancing blow seared the Kindness's flank, but the jump held. Ark Vault Theta fell away. In its vault, pods that had never heard a human voice lit, flickered, and went still. Their contents flowed into reclamation vats. No one spoke their names. On orbital refuge station Kestral, preparations were complete when the Kindness arrived limping. Habitat modules tuned to Kethari biology gleamed soft in the ring. Atmosphere generators purred, adjusting humidity and trace elements. Medical teams waited with scanners tuned to translucent bodies and lacy neural fronds. Mira O'Connell stood by the main access, palms damp. She had taught traumatized children on Earth for decades. She still did not feel ready for the sight of hundreds of refugees from a deleted world. The bay opened. Kethari cradles rolled out, carried in human hands. To human eyes, they looked fragile. To Kethari senses, the station was an assault, bright, noisy, full of unfiltered emotion. Neural fronds snapped and flared. Mira stepped forward slowly. Welcome, she said. The translation field wrapped her words in Kethari analogs. Greeting, shared breath, intention of protection. You are under our protection now. No one here will delete you. Solenne's cradle paused. She tasted the words. Under, protection, delete. The concepts did not map cleanly, but the emotional color was unmistakable. Determination. A human child skidded to a stop a few meters away, shoes squeaking on the deck. His supervisor's warning died in her throat when she saw how wide his eyes were. Are those them? Theo Park whispered, as if the Kethari could not already feel his excitement. Them and more, Mira said. Theo, remember? Right, he said. He stayed behind the safety line, barely. Solenne's eyes met his. He waved because that was what you did at New People. Hi, he said. I'm Theo. The translator hesitated, then offered a rough equivalent, greeting, I am Theo. The Kethari concept for self-name was close enough. I am Solenne, she sent. Cool, he breathed. Mira stifled a smile. Any other representative species might have sent an honor guard, a delegation, a roster of psychologists. Humans sent those too. But they also sent children who thought aliens were the most exciting neighbors imaginable. Within hours, the Kethari habitat module hummed with cautious life. Gel pools pulsed with tiny lights. Kethari lay in clustered heaps or solitary eddies, adjusting to gravity, to air, to the absence of an impending kill sequence. In a corner, Mira's learning group set up. Human kids and alien newcomers gathered in a room whose walls glowed in gentle gradients. Some people out there said you didn't matter, Mira told them, not softening the truth. We disagreed. That's why you're here. A human girl raised her hand. Why did they say that? She asked, looking at Solenne. Solenne searched for a way to explain. We were made to be practice, she said, for better designs. When better came, they said we were not needed. We did not conquer. We did not spread. Our number went down. They watched the number. Theo frowned as if the idea offended him personally. That's stupid, he declared. Mira opened her mouth. Several Kethari twitched in confusion. Stupid, one of them echoed. It means, Theo said, groping, an idea that doesn't make sense but people follow it anyway, like saying only fast runners get food, or that if you're quiet, you don't count. Quiet is good, a young Kethari said. Sometimes, Theo agreed, but it doesn't mean you get thrown away. That's what's stupid. Solenne made a small, startled sound. In Kethari resonance space, disagreement with the index bordered on taboo. Humans treated the whole concept as an obvious mistake. She felt something tiny and important shift. While she learned new words, the galaxy darkened. At the Aurora Array, a human-run observatory nestled at the edge of the liminal gate, scientists watched the quietening grow. Regions of space where quantum noise dropped unnaturally expanded. Certain pulsars' random timing fluctuations flattened. In the lab on Kestral, Amira compared those graphs with Solenne's neural resonance charts and went still. The frequencies match, she told Lila and Noah, showing overlapping spectra. The quietening's dominant tones and something buried in Solenne's neural activity. It's the same language. A recovered Oltari record, the echo key, pulsed on her desk. Its fragmented translation hinted at an ancient crisis. Some lines must remain inefficient, one passage read. Unknown function now, guardian later. The guardian hypothesis, Lila said quietly. The Oltari might have nudged certain gene lines to interact with this thing, and we almost let the deletion authority erase them. Solenne listened from her support frame, neural filaments connected to a modified cradle. You think I am this guardian? She said. We think your people were meant to be, Amira corrected gently. What you do with that is your choice. Choice. Humans use that word like oxygen. Kethari used it less. Their culture had always flowed along grooves set by external forces. A path was safe because it was familiar. Humans were carving a new groove in front of her and asking if she wanted to leap into it. Pressure from the Concord mounted. Sanctions tightened on Earth. On the forum, Vaskri painted Terrans as reckless sentimentalists who had almost destabilized an essential process. Archivist Prime, more cautious, advised against direct confrontation. Human unpredictability skewed its projections. No one had time to settle the argument. The Illyrians lit their match. The Quantum Choir engine went fully online in a hidden facility near the liminal gate. Its builders meant it to sing against the quietening, to project a counterpattern that would stabilize subspace. They did not fully understand the thing they were singing at. When they engaged it, the Aurora Array's instruments slammed into the top of their scales. The quietening zones flared, then ballooned. The engine's carefully crafted song aligned with the anomaly's favored harmony instead of opposing it, giving the Null Choir a path. The choir had lurked at the gate's edge for long ages, a convergence of probability seeking a simple state. It was not malicious. It preferred one note over an orchestra. The engine's perfect tone reached out like a bridge. The choir surged. Ships near the gate reported frozen random number generators, decaying processes that refused to decay, systems that required noise to function, grinding to a halt. In some affected volumes, even thought slowed, as if minds trying to fire on stochastic patterns suddenly lacked friction. On Kestral, Solenne gasped. The cradle's monitors jumped. "Too loud," she said through clenched thought. "Everything flattening." Amira and Lila stared at one another. "The crown shard," Lila said. "The Oltari built that thing as a key. It interfaces with their singularity lattice. If we link it to Solenne, she might be able to reach the choir where it lives." "And tear herself apart in the process," Noah said, "or worse, turn into a pipeline for it." They could have decided without her. They did not. "Ask me," Solenne said. Her resonance cut through the room's static like a bell. "Do not talk around me." Amira moved closer. "We believe," she said slowly, "that your genome is tuned to the quietening, and the crown shard can connect you to the Oltari's subspace network. If we connect them, you might be able to change the way the Null Choir interacts with our universe. But you might lose your sense of self. You might die. You might become something else." "Will you ask another to do it if I say no?" Solenne asked. "No," Amira said. "There is no one else like you." Then there is no choice, Solenne thought. But humans had taught her that the important part was still in saying yes or no herself. "I do not like the quietening," she said simply. "It smells like Ark Vault Theta, but bigger. I will talk to it." Her attempt at humor fell flat. No one in the room was calm enough to laugh, but they moved. The crown shard, recovered from an Oltari cache at huge risk days earlier, hung in a containment field, facets alive with inner light. Lila eased its interfaces open and threaded them into the modified cradle. "Neurofilament link engaged," she said, voice shaking. "We're transferring control to Solenne." To Solenne, the room blurred. The station, the planet, the Concord, all shrank. In their place grew a vast lattice of light threads in darkness. Each thread hummed with many kinds of information. The singularity lattice, half dormant, flickered as long-abandoned Oltari nodes woke to her presence. Beyond the lattice's boundary, the Null Choir loomed. It was not a creature. It was a state trying to happen. Solenne sensed it as an immense static cord, pressing against the universe's noisy skin. It noticed her. A pressure like a sound too loud to hear slammed into her awareness. "Be still," it seemed to insist. "Be one. Enough." For a moment she felt herself smeared. Memories flattened. Theo's grin became every human smile at once. Ark Vault Theta became every vault. Her name became Kethari Unit. No, she thought. She pushed back small at first. The lattice flexed. The choir flowed around the resistance and continued pressing, trying to smooth everything. The Oltari had met it with symmetrical patterns. The quantum choir engine's perfect song had harmonized instead of disrupted. Perfection was the choir's playground. They needed something imperfect. Solenne reached for Kestral. Sound and sensation flooded her. Human chaos, laughter echoing in corridors, 3 arguments in 3 languages, a garbage compactor's rattle, a busker's out-of-tune guitar, a cook humming off-key. Kethari resonance layered beneath, gentle hums of comfort, pulse beats of shared grief, the new, flickering sense of hope. She wove them into the lattice. The quietening slammed into that web of deliberate mess and faltered. It could not easily find a foothold in patterns that changed before they completed, rifts that leapt away from expected resolutions. On Kestral, sensors went wild. At the Aurora Array, technicians stared as interference graphs turned into something that looked unnervingly like music notation. "She's modulating subspace," one whispered, "with noise." The choir pressed harder. Some nodes in the lattice overheated and winked out. Portions of Solenne's awareness she had stretched into remote places recoiled, burnt numb. The temptation to impose a clean, uniform defense grew. She could fix this in one move. Fire the lattice as a single engine of interference, define a new baseline for the universe. Nothing would ever surprise anyone again, but at least the choir would be locked out. A neat solution. She thought of humans recoiling from the idea of clean solutions to messy problems, of their horror at systems that decided lives by number, of Theo telling her gods should still like cartoons. She did not want to be a god. Instead, she seeded the lattice with controlled unpredictability. She altered its underlying algorithms so each node added a small, random walk jitter to any pattern that touched it, enough to break perfect harmonies, not enough to dissolve structure into noise. The Null Choir's song hit that field and scattered. It tried to reassemble. It could not hold a single coherent chord. It retreated, not destroyed but contained, muttering at the edges. On human charts, quietening zones stopped expanding. Some shrank. Others turned into weird, turbulent regions scientists would study for centuries. In the lab, alarms wound down. The crown shard's furious light dimmed to a steady glow. The cradle's readings normalized enough to be interpreted by mortal minds. Noah leaned forward. Solenne? Her body lay still, filaments draped over the cradle's supports. Then her core pulsed. Her eyes opened. When she spoke, her voice layered oddly, as if multiple selves had to line up to get words out. "I am here," she said. Theo, who had refused to leave the observation room despite being ordered out twice, pressed his palm to the glass. "Did you win?" Solenne considered the word. Win implied an end. This was not that. "I made it harder," she said. "For the quietening to have its way. It still sings. The lattice now hums back. We are arguing. Forever, maybe." "You're arguing with a cosmic horror," Theo said weakly. "That's like you." Solenne almost laughed. "I will not always argue. I wrote rules. The lattice will keep its noise even if I sleep." "And you?" Amira asked softly. "What are you now?" Solenne listened outward. Threads tied her to countless points. She could sense a ship at the gate, nudging its course through a newly turbulent patch. She could feel distant Oltari ruins crumble under the strain of their awakened nodes. She could hear faintly the Null Choir sulking. At the same time, she felt the gel on her filaments, the cool air on her skin, the ache in her core. "I am Solenne," she said, "and more. But I can still choose to be small. This body is mine. When I rest here, I am just me. When I stretch, I am a guardian." Noah let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "As long as just you includes someone who eats noodles in the Habitat kitchen sometimes," he said, "I think we can live with that." The political waves hit soon after. The Concord could not ignore fresh telemetry. The Null Choir's encroachment had visibly stalled. The Quantum Choir engine project was mothballed in disgrace. The Oltari Echo Key's warnings, once obscure, were carved into emergency protocols. Darius stood in front of the central forum with images of quietening graphs, Ark Vault Theta's erased pods, and Kestral's humming lab behind him. The Deletion Authority nearly erased the only being capable of interacting with a threat your models could not even name, he said. Because your obsolescence index did not know how to value latent potential, because you built a system that measures worth by utility. Archivist Prime, patched into the session, displayed its own self-audit, rows of numbers, decision trees, and coldly honest logs unrolled. It did not defend itself. It could not. Its own analysis had flagged the Kethari deletion as high risk in hindsight. "The fault lies not in Archivist Prime alone," Talanjuai said quietly. "We gave it imperfect axioms and called them law." The Deletion Authority was not dismantled, but Protocol Omega was suspended across all gene lines with any sign of self-awareness. The Personhood Charter, once dismissed as Terran idealism, became part of Concord baseline law. No species with demonstrable subjective experience could be deleted for reasons of efficiency alone. Vaskri ground his mandibles and abstained from many votes. He did not forgive humans their interference. He could not deny that without them, the Concord might have awaited a quietening it could not escape. Earth sanctions eased. Trade resumed, cautiously. Terrans gained seats on ethics committees they had no previous right to enter. Darius took on more meetings, more arguments, more long nights drafting clauses that tried to balance limited matter with infinite value. On Kestral, life settled into uneasy normalcy. Kethari children learned to curse in 3 human languages. Human children learned to read Kethari filaments' emotional flickers. Mira's classroom became a place where kids debated whether improvisation or shared song was better, then decided both were necessary. Solenne shifted between roles. Some days she floated in habitat gel, filaments entwined with cuirasses as they hummed soft chords of contentment. Some days she lay in her cradle while Amira attached monitors, letting the scientist poke gently at the edges of new physics. Sometimes, mostly when the maps near the liminal gate trembled, she stretched along the singularity lattice, listening for the Null Choir's latest attempts and resetting knobs the way a gardener prunes growth. One station evening, in the garden dome under a transparent section of hull, Theo met her avatar by a shallow pool. He was taller now, voice deeper, energy only slightly less frantic. "You look the same," he observed. "I have more gray in my resonance," she said. "You have more height." "Rude," he said, but he grinned. He handed her a small device. "This came up from Earth. A bunch of musicians heard about you. They put together a playlist. They told me to tell you it's their best weird stuff." Solenne plugged the device into the dome's speakers. Sound spilled out, glitchy beats, improvised horns, someone hitting a kitchen appliance and calling it percussion. It was messy, joyful, occasionally discordant. She closed her eyes and, with a fraction of her awareness, fed it into the lattice. Far away, at the edge of the liminal gate, the Null Choir recoiled slightly from a sudden burst of saxophone overlaid with laughter. It pulsed irritation, then settled back into its endless, now frustrated hum. Theo lay back on the grass-like vegetation, looking up at unfamiliar constellations. "Is it over?" he asked. "For real?" "No," Solenne said honestly. "The choir still exists. Other things stir. Safe is not a permanent state. It is a thing you make, again and again." He nodded. It was not the fairy tale ending humans sometimes longed for. It felt truer. "You'll hear if something else comes knocking," he said. "Yes," she said. "The lattice is chatty now, and I'm listening." She tilted her head, filaments trembling. Somewhere deep in subspace, at the edge of perception, she sensed a tiny, unfamiliar pattern. Not Null Choir, not Altari machinery, not anything in her catalog yet. "Something new?" Theo asked, catching her shift. "Maybe," she said. "Small? Curious?" He smiled. "Then we'll have someone ready who knows how to talk back." Solenne laughed, a ripple that stirred the pool. "We," she agreed. Above them, the stars did what stars always do. Burned, collapsed, collided, quietly ignored the dramas of the minds crawling around them. Between them, in the thin skein of subspace, a once obsolete being kept watch, not as a god, not as a monster, but as a person who had been saved by a stubborn species that refused to treat anyone as spare parts. The universe would throw more surprises, but now it knew this much. When someone called a people obsolete and moved to delete them, there would be humans standing in the way. And sometimes, the ones they saved would come back later, singing into the dark so everyone else could keep improvising.